If the members will remove their conversations to outside of the floor. The chair will now entertain requests for 1-minute speeches. In order. For what purpose does the gentleman, New York, seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Be in order. Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to celebrate an extraordinary milestone in the life of Alfred Al Magnata.
Be in order. The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to celebrate an extraordinary milestone in the life of Alfred Al Magnata, who will turn 100 years old on January 27th. Al's legacy is one of unwavering dedication and service to his country and community, a true embodiment of the American spirit. Al served as a B-17 aerial gunner in the United States Army's 8th Air Force Division during World War II, completing 25 missions while stationed in England. Returning home in 1946, Al joined the Congress Fire Department and rose through the ranks, serving as chief from 1960 to 1962, and later as Rockland County Deputy Fire Coordinator, a role he held for over 6 decades. Over 79 years of continuous service, Al has responded to countless emergencies, from the 80-hour freight train fire in 1974 to drills at Indian Point and more. His leadership, commitment, and resilience have been instrumental in shaping fire safety standards across Rockland County and New York State. At 100 years young, Al remains the Congress Fire Department's oldest active member, continuing to respond to calls and serve his community. Please join me in honoring Al Magnata, a hero, a leader, and an inspiration to us all. Happy birthday, Al. Thank you, and I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Last year, I was so proud to be one of the people to help lead an effort to create the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Since its establishment in 2023, this office has helped reduce gun violence by 20% and delivered the lowest violent crime rate in over 50 years. The office wasn't about politics. It was about saving lives, and even had bipartisan support from members in this chamber. But on day 2 of the Trump administration, something happened. That progress was recklessly dismantled by President Donald Trump. Just today, 1 day after the office was shut down, students were shot at a high school in Nashville, and one was killed. While lives are stolen daily by gun violence, this administration is busy signing executive orders that have nothing to do with helping working families and keeping our communities safe. After every mass shooting, the cries of grieving families begged us to do something over the last 4 years, and we did by making this office. But here we are again, forced to abandon the efforts that have saved lives. Leaders on both sides of the aisle need to come together to pass common sense gun reform, and we can't stop fighting until we have another Office of Gun Violence Prevention. Thank you. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentleman from New York seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, my constituents need more salt, and Congress must deliver it in this year's budget. The state and local tax deduction is the #1 federal tax issue for Long Islanders. It protects taxpayers from being taxed twice on the same income and ensures fairness in our tax system. Some of my Democrat colleagues claim salt is a relief, is a handout for the wealthy, and nothing could be further from the truth. My district has one of the highest costs of living in the nation, where what's considered a high income elsewhere barely covers expenses. Some of my Republican colleagues argue SALT relief subsidizes bloated state budgets, but the facts don't lie. States like New York, New Jersey, and California send billions more to Washington than we get back. Meanwhile, states like Kentucky and South Carolina and dozens of other red states receive much more than what they contribute. We Long Islanders aren't asking for any special treatment. We just want our fair share. A higher SALT cap means tax fairness. It means economic equity. And it means relief for hardworking families. Let's get it done. I yield back.
For what purpose does the gentlewoman from New Mexico seek recognition?
Ask for unanimous consent to address the House and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today I stand to honor and remember the life and the legacy of Dr. Harold Bailey, President of the NAACP Albuquerque chapter, leader across New Mexico, a pillar in the community, mentor, a father, someone who mentored countless generations of individuals who have transformed the fabric of our life in New Mexico. His work on civil rights and early education will be remembered for generations. As we remember Dr. Bailey, let us commit ourselves to upholding the values that he championed: equality, compassion, and an unwavering dedication to improving the lives of others. May Dr. Bailey's spirit continue to guide us as we strive for a better future for all Americans and for all New Mexicans. I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to honor Master Sergeant Linda Faye Julian. Sergeant Julian enlisted into the Tennessee Air National Guard in 1975 and attended dental specialist school at Kessler Air Force Base. She deployed in support of many operations and exercises with 134th Air Refueling Wing. Sergeant Julian served her country with distinction during Operation Desert Storm and Desert Shield. In 1987, she was selected as the Air National Guard Outstanding Medical Corps Airman of the Year. She was a great mentor to many young airmen who went on to have very distinguished careers in the medical clinic and the Air Guard, and she retired in 2002 after a distinguished career of 27 years. She didn't stop giving once she retired. Sergeant Julian continued to serve her community through the Junior Service League in Blount County. She was passionately involved in charitable causes, including Toys for Tots and the Meals on Wheels program. She touched countless lives with her kindness. She was proud of her 3 children and 3 grandchildren and was always happiest surrounded by her loved ones. Sergeant Julian loved her country and her community. It's my honor to recognize Master Sergeant Linda Faye Julian as Tennessee's 2nd District, January 2025 Veteran of the Year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the remainder of my time.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina seek recognition?
Consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to pay tribute to Dr. Lavonia Allison, a fierce civil rights activist, accomplished educator, and esteemed political leader. As a lifelong resident of Durham, North Carolina, Dr. Allison's impact was profound and multifaceted. From her time as serving as first vice chair of the Durham County Democratic Party to her leadership as chair of the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, she worked tirelessly to uplift the African American community and ensure that their voices were heard and represented in local politics. She was quite literally the personification of Ella Baker. Her steadfast focus on civic engagement in the city of Durham has been a catalyst for over 60 years, connecting our civil rights past to our hopeful present through the power of the ballot box. Her lessons will echo across the campus of North Carolina Central University and the state for years to come, and her legacy will live through the life of young people that she trained and mentored throughout her dynamic life. I will miss her as a trusted advisor, a supportive colleague, and a dear friend, and I offer my heartfelt condolences to her family, loved ones, and the entire community during this difficult time. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and honor the retirement of Mr. Jeff Barker, marking the conclusion of a truly remarkable career. For over 40 years, Mr. Barker dedicated his life to leadership, compassion, and service. He spent 20 years at Gilman Paper Company, which was once the largest privately owned paper company in America and a cornerstone employer in Camden County. After the mill transitioned ownership, he continued his distinguished career as executive vice president. Following the paper mill's closure in 2002, Mr. Barker was selected as the first president and CEO of the St. Mary's United Methodist Church Foundation. Under his leadership, the foundation expanded its mission to serve Southeast Georgia, the nation, and the world. It has promoted global Methodism, supported evangelical ministries, and partnered in international relief efforts. For 24 years, Mr. Barker brought hope and opportunity to vulnerable populations in his community and across the globe. His life's works left a legacy both locally and internationally. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Barker and offer our best wishes to him and his family as he embarks on a well-earned retirement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
My 1 minute remarks to revise and extend.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, during my 8 years as mayor of Houston, I've faced 7 federally declared disasters. I want to thank this House for your support. Texas has experienced more billion-dollar disasters since 1980 than any other state in the union. Hurricane Harvey in 2017, Winter Storm Uri in February of 2021 cost us billions. I am grateful to the White House under the leadership at the time of President Trump and Biden and bipartisan members of Congress for the billions of dollars sent to Houston and Texas without any preconditions. Disasters affect Democrats and Republicans and every social economic group. People lose their homes, their furniture, their cars, their pets, and many lose their lives. These disasters affect them physically and mentally. For many families with limited means, and especially those with children, they do not know how they're going to move forward. The support of Congress gives them hope, resources, lighten their burden, and renews their faith that country will be there for them in their moment of need. I pray we will be there for the people of California, as Congress was there for Texas without conditions, and for others that may face disasters in the future. Mr. Speaker, that is who we are. I yield back my time.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
I seek unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and advise to my minutes.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today marks 52 years since that fateful Roe versus Wade decision, a decision that has tragically ended countless unborn lives. The Supreme Court, not too long ago, did find that it was unconstitutionally put in place, not legislated, but done by the stroke of a pen of a court. This week, thousands of people across the country are coming together in Washington for the March for Life, showing their unwavering commitment to standing up for the unborn and pushing for a culture that values and protects life. Every life is precious, and it's our duty to defend those who can't speak for themselves, even though there's those that would say it's just a clump of cells. Well, those clumps of cells always, every time, develop into a human, not a puppy, not a waffle, always a human. And for people to try and deny that science is ridiculous. That's why I'm honored to have received the A+ rating by the Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life Scorecard for the 118th Congress, a recognition of my own dedication, but that of so many of my colleagues as well, that we all back each other up on. Protecting life doesn't stop there. We need to make sure that mothers have the information they need and the support they need so they can make informed decisions rather than those glossed over by the abortionists. I yield.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Ohio seek recognition? Without objection, the gentlewoman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I can hear the cheers rising in Toledo, Ohio, the 100-year legacy home of Jeep Wrangler, Jeep Gladiator, and I can hear the cheers coming from Shawn Fain, the president of the United Auto Workers nationwide, and regionally Bruce Bumhauer, the Local 12 president, Dave Green, the regional leader of Region 2B, and Tony Toddy, the president of Local 14. This afternoon, Chairman John Elkin from Jeep Stellantis announced plans by Jeep Stellantis to reinvest in industrial America. In Toledo, Ohio, they will invest in order to produce, and I'm reading directly from his remarks, taking product actions for Jeep Wrangler and Jeep Gladiator in our Toledo assembly complex and more components critical to our production in the Toledo machining plant. This means jobs, living wage jobs, jobs with retirement benefits, jobs in the middle class. He also announced in Belvidere, Illinois, Detroit, Michigan, and Kokomo, Indiana, similar investments. Mr. Speaker, thank you so very much for the leaders of Jeep Stellantis and their union workers for keeping their word to America's workers. God bless them and God bless America. I yield back.
Thank you. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Moore, is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material on the topic of this special order.
Without objection.
Again, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Great to see you up on the dais there. With President Trump officially in the White House and the inauguration festivities behind us, House Republicans are hitting the ground running this week on critical bills that protect our most vulnerable among us and respond to the devastating wildfires ravaging throughout Southern California. But just to capture what just happened maybe 30 minutes ago, we passed in the House of Representatives, we just passed the final version of the Laken-Riley Act, which is common sense immigration, border security protocols that put the lives of Americans first. It's so common sense. I'm going to highlight there are 2 people, and primarily probably just one, that made this so we couldn't do this a year and a half ago when it should have been done, a year ago in the 118th Congress. We just had over a dozen Democrats in the Senate vote for this bill. We had numerous Democrats in the House also support this bill. Well, what's the difference today versus 6-8 months ago when we tried to pass this? It's Senator Schumer. Senator Schumer, as the leader of the Senate, would not allow for this bill to come up. He told those 12 Democrats in the Senate, I'm not going to give you a chance to actually vote for sensible border security about the life lost of a Georgian because of absolutely insane border falter from President Biden. So Chuck Schumer basically said to a big portion of his Democrat senators, I'm not going to give you a chance to vote on something sensible. The House sent it over to us. We're not going to vote on it. We make one change. You put Senator John Thune in the leader position where he with Republican senators decide, let's get this on the floor. And a dozen or so senators come on board from the Democrat side and vote for something sensible. I wish the American people truly understand. That is why elections are so important. That's why you put conservative leadership over in the Senate coupled with what we're doing in the House to provide sensible legislation. It's not extreme legislation like what it gets highlighted. It literally is going to make a positive impact, and that's just the second day. President Trump now has something to sign and show the American people that we hear you and we're ready to go and move about this. I commend the bipartisan group of individuals from the Democrat side in the House and the Senate that were willing to sort of buck the trend and say, look, let's do this. So very excited about it. And make that point, obviously a little frustrated that it took so much time. It should have been brought up under Chuck Schumer's when he was majority leader, but that's clearly not the way he's going to govern. Who knows if President Biden would have signed it, but if the Senate leader is going to push, you can sometimes get something across the finish line, even in the White House, even in an opposing White House. This week, so we got that done today, but this week we're going to focus on Congresswoman Wagner's Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. Another very common sense piece of legislation that protects the fundamental right to life by ensuring that babies that survive an attempted abortion receive the same medical care health providers would administer to a fetus born prematurely at the same age. If a baby survives an abortion, this bill says to that physician, hey, you got to administer the same health care treatments that you would in any other labor situation. This legislation also requires healthcare providers transport the child to the hospital and report abortion violations to law enforcement. Also, as Southern California continues to struggle with devastating wildfires, House Republicans are also supporting Chairman Westerman's Fix Our Forests Act, which enhances resiliency after wildfires and reduces regulatory burdens that hinder active forest management. I'm grateful to my colleagues for joining me this evening to discuss these necessary pieces of legislation. And now I will gladly yield to my colleague from Wisconsin, so much time as he may consume, Mr. Van Orden.
I thank the gentleman from Utah, Mr. Speaker. I look at this issue from a different perspective. I was a combat medic in the United States Navy SEAL teams for over 2 decades. And if I had encountered an enemy combatant that was injured on the battlefield, and I have, if I did not render medical aid to the best of my ability, up to and including to the detriment of my own troops, I would be subject to prosecution. When we talk about the most innocent amongst us, unborn children, who survive the most traumatic circumstances imaginable, an attempted abortion. When we say as a body that we will not render medical aid to that human child, we are less of a people. And unfortunately, tomorrow, you're going to hear many of my Democrat colleagues say that this bill is to restrict a woman's right to have an abortion. And that's a lie. You're going to hear many of my Democrat colleagues say that this is vindictive. That's a lie. You're going to hear many of my Democrat colleagues say that Republicans want to burden women who find themselves in a place where they feel like they must abort their unborn human child. And that's a lie. Enough. This is about the sanctity of human life, the dignity of a child, our ability as a nation and as a body to express humanity to someone who has done nothing wrong, not to themselves, not to our culture, not to our society. So I would implore my Democrat colleagues to look at the life of a human child that has survived the most traumatic possible circumstance, an attempted abortion, and think of that child as their own. And think of that child as someone that is a child of God, that is the apex of creation, because that is exactly what that child is. And they deserve all of the respect that we can possibly give them because they are our children. And with that, I yield back.
Thank you to the gentleman, the passionate gentleman from Wisconsin. Always appreciate it. I now yield so much time as he may consume to the good gentleman from California, and look forward to hearing more of his perspective on what's ravaging through his state. Again, our hearts go out to those affected, and I think as you hear many conversations about the California wildfires, you constantly hear that the concern for the human element of this and a sincere desire to find improvements in how we address this going forward. Support them now and address this going forward. And I yield that time to Mr. LaMalfa.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Appreciate it a lot. You know, if you watch this channel a whole lot, you might see me on the floor a lot talking about forestry and water, whether it's California or the whole West. And I know my colleague from Utah, I know it greatly affects him too, the way the forest fires and lack of forest management is it's appalling. And why do we have to suffer this year after year when we know what actually works, when the Forest Services should be doing its job and treating more acres at a timeline that is much more rapid? We'd want to say increase the pace and scale of doing so. And it just doesn't happen. And we know they face lawsuits all the time, but at some point we have to be able to beat the lawsuits, let them come, but go get the work done and be bold, be strong, and take them on. Because, you know, after some point, it's got to be proven that what we're doing is the right thing, even though you have a liberal judge in San Francisco or somewhere that's trying to say, oh, you got to restudy once again for a salamander or something like that. Well, when you have the kind of destruction that we see time and time again in our forests, in especially the western states, then we'll just keep suffering it. And there's no reason for that. There's no reason. So the Fix Our Forests Act, working on it this week here, my colleague and chairman of resources, Mr. Westerman, has been working a long time on this. It's a very practical bipartisan plan to tackle the wildfire crisis and finally start managing the forests correctly. We see the destruction. Excuse me. One fire in my district called the Dixie Fire a couple, 3 years ago was 1 million acres. Several other fires in the 6-digit number, the North Complex, the Camp Fire, several 100,000 acres, but also took 85 lives of the town of Paradise. And what we're seeing is in the destruction in Los Angeles, we have, it's unspeakable what's going on down there. And unfortunately, I've already lived that in 3.5 communities of mine in the North State that are almost completely lost in fires the last few years. Pardon me. And it's heartbreaking, and it's mostly avoidable. You know, you're going to have fires, they're going to happen, but if you have managed lands, then it's much easier to put fire out and control it. And so when you look at the picture here, a managed forest is a better forest. It's better for the forest health itself. It's better for the wildlife in it. It's much easier to control fire and put fire out the way fire behaves. So that when you see this managed forest here on the far side of this poster, you see it's thin. And this is how forests used to look 120 years ago. We've let them fill in too much because we've had the stance of putting out all fires, or at least we did for a while. And so the forest became built up like this. They're very dense. It's hard for the wildlife to even get through there, let alone, you know, the old standard was, could a cowboy ride a horse through there like when the first explorers came to the West? You can't now. This is a tinderbox. Trees compete for very limited water supply, especially in a drought period. When they have to compete for limited water, it kind of harms the tree. The tree struggles, and then it becomes weak. It becomes susceptible to insects that are just waiting to take advantage. And they know a weak tree. A tree's self-defense mechanism is the sap that it produces when it's healthy. When that sap is there, if a borer tries to bore into that tree, the sap tends to push that insect out. It works pretty well. But if the tree's weak, it doesn't make nearly as much of that sap, and the tree gets basically over time killed. You should see an area in eastern central California, east of Fresno, as we've gone to camp up there before. This area here looks all green, but if you look at that area, about every other tree is gray. And if lightning ever hits that, if something happens there, it'll be yet the next fire. And they keep happening. The park fire that happened in Chico, California, near my home, 400,000 acres blew from just that area east of Chico all the way up to basically right near Lassen Park, a long ways, 400-something thousand acres. And we can't get used to these 6-digit numbers for fires. And the amount of resources it takes, the amount of firefighters and the amount of people that put themselves in a dangerous way to do this, it's just unnecessary. So let's defeat these environmental lawsuits. Let's defeat these naysayers, because this makes sense here. This doesn't. We keep losing this way. And so when you see that the issue in not that one, this will take Southern California, since that's the topic right now, you know, and for good reason. We have to manage these grasslands and these brushlands that are around. They're not forested per se. That's a little farther east of LA in those areas. But it's the same thing. If this brush is managed, then they have a much better chance when the Santa Ana winds come up every year of being able to control or stop the fire. It won't be perfect every time, but it gives you a fighting chance. And they had been doing it, but for some reason this year they suspended that work. Budget cuts, what are they spending the money on? And that's been a hot topic here, of giving California money, and yet they're not helping themselves, it seems. That's my home state, and I've been frustrated for a long time. They spend a lot of money on a lot of other things. They want more federal money when they're still wasting money in high-speed rail, want to give a whole bunch of money more to illegal immigration and a bunch of benefits for that. The state's even trying to set aside $50 million to fight Trump. What is that all about? And they want to come asking for money here. They say, well, you're putting conditions on us. Like, well, you're not acting very, very properly. You're not acting in a way that's responsible when you should be focused on things that are keeping the public safe. The water supply that ran out in the area by Pacific Palisades didn't need to run out. Now, maybe they should upgrade their fire hydrant system and have larger lines that can hold more water at a time, but they aren't doing that. The lake that was nearby was empty for almost a full year. So when you see the work that needs to be done not getting done, what is everybody supposed to do? What are the other 49 states supposed to say? Like, well, okay, we'll keep doing what you're doing. We'll give you money, you know? But all the complaining around here is about conditions. So when you don't do that, this is what you get. We've seen it in vivid colors and coverage here. Thankfully, the wind had subsided somewhat in Southern California, and they're getting their arms around it somewhat, but the wind can come back, and who knows what it'll hit next. So when we talk about what we need to do in the Fix Our Forest Act, we need to pass this legislation. I can't believe the arguments on that side of the aisle against it. It doesn't make any sense, because we need to manage these lands. The federal government is in charge through the Forest Service, 193 million acres, okay? And their ambitious goal is to treat 2 million per year. That's 1% per year. Well, if you do the math, that takes 100 years to get over all that. And so we get, although this is the city situation, it doesn't look that much different. When I was standing in my home district next to a town named Canyon Dam, which had that same orange glow, 5 minutes before the town of Canyon Dam disappeared. There's no reason for this. Fix Our Forest Act would be a very important step in managing forests in a way that is successful. President Trump has been leading the charge just in 2 days on the executive orders, not playing around with the climate change game, not playing all that, instead wanting to move towards water supply for California, moving towards forest management, and we'll be working with him on that more so. He gets it, he understands it. This is him in Paradise, California saying, why aren't you managing these lands? Governor Newsom stands there empty-handed. 6 years later, after that fire, 6 years later, empty promises, with very little land having been managed the way it should. So I'm really glad we have President Trump who understands this and is going to do everything he can to help, and we will help supply him the legislation, such as the Fix Our Forest Acts, which, again, the things it does, particularly, it expands the clearance zone for hazardous trees around power lines, a bill I've been carrying personally, as it was one of the fires in my district, known as the Carr Fire, was caused by that, and 2 others caused by that, power lines and things. It directs the Forest Service to expand the use of livestock grazing. There's a concept, livestock grazing. We know it works, and it works all through the West. And they try and shut that down, like you don't get the permit for that. You know, it might affect the species. It actually is found to actually help species when the cattle keep the noxious weeds and such down. As they've made it more and more difficult to keep those grazing permits and grazing abilities there, including a very heinous one going on in a Northern California park right now, where they're kicking the growers, kicking the cattle people off the land after many years. So we're also talking about looking at having a Western headquarters for the Forest Service instead of in Washington, D.C. They need to be based where the forests mostly are, where the problem usually is. You know, the idea of migrating the Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, USDA. Well, we put it where the issue is, especially the Forest Service. And that's the idea. It's in this bill as well. Excuse me. So it will take advantage of local expertise, people that actually know and live with the conditions. They know the wind patterns. They know what things look like, instead of a fire team maybe coming from somewhere else and maybe not making the right call on how they should treat the area. So Fix Our Forests Act is a giant step in the right direction. I support it wholeheartedly and ask my colleagues to jump in on and have it be a bipartisan, nothing wrong with this bill. Let's do it. Sorry, let's do it. You'll bet.
Bless you on the on taking the get a glass of water. I'll just quickly touch on it as well. I anticipate there will be some clear bipartisan support on this, and if you're looking at it through a lens of common sense, we should get an abundance of it. I reflect back to Monday when President Trump, during his inaugural address, says we want to be a party of common sense. It is something that I want to sincerely communicate as I wrap up here. There's a lot of games that get played in Washington. There's a minority and there's a majority, and then there's a lot of back and forth that goes on. I've experienced both. I've experienced it all, from White House switching, Senate switching back and forth, House going back and forth. There's a lot of games. There's a lot of times that the majority will put in a bill that has some poison pills in it for the minority to do, and it becomes a entire messaging bill party line exercise. I was subject to it for my first term, and not every bill from the majority was like that. And I joined on in a very bipartisan way, sometimes not even from the majority of my side. And you have to look at the policy. And I have seen a sincere effort from us to not go down the poison pill route, just to get them to say, we know they're going to vote against it, so then we'll go out there in the public world and use it for campaign purposes. Like, this Fix Our Forest Act is such a sincere, common sense approach from Chairman Westerman, who is a forester by trade. He has delved into this issue. He knows more about it than virtually anybody back here in Congress, to dive in and talk about how we can protect, preserve, enhance our forest health while also protecting our communities by putting the type of forest breaks in there, controlled burns, and things like that have proven to be very successful. My state goes through this all the time. We have seen devastation happen, and we've learned from it. And that's all we're asking to do in this moment, is to take a look. And honestly, I hope it ends up being a net positive with all the destruction and the sadness that's gone on, and the devastation in California right now. I hope it has captured the attention in all 50 of our states to recognize there are better ways to do this, and it's not a partisan exercise. And that's what we're trying to accomplish this week with Chairman Westerman's Fix Our Forest Act, a common sense bill that works to prevent destructive wildfires, improve emergency response by providing new tools and advanced technology, and cut burdensome regulation and hinder active forest management. I've served under Chairman Westerman on the Natural Resources Committee, and he leads with a real sensible approach to solving problems, and it's something that we absolutely need more of back here. And so I thank my colleagues tonight for being here to help share the message of what we're trying to accomplish this week. And with that, Mr. Speaker, thank you very much, and I yield back the remainder of my time to the chair.
The gentleman yields back. Under the Speaker's announced policy of January 3rd, 2025, the chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Elzey, for 30 minutes.
Sir, I ask unanimous consent. Members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include extraneous material.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today with a deep sense of pride and gratitude for the people of this great nation and the incredible achievements of my constituents in the 6th Congressional District of Texas. You know, our country is rich with individuals who embody the values of service, dedication, and unity, and today I have the honor of celebrating some of those remarkable people. The United States is home to the most generous people on earth. We are home to the most productive people on the planet who worship freely and then volunteer their remaining time to help others in need. Our nation is a beacon of compassion and hope for the rest of the world. We are blessed with heroes who save lives daily. Not only our police officers and firefighters, but also our teachers, medical professionals, construction workers, and so many others. Acts of heroism happen in our country every day, produced by folks who just want to see others succeed, see our country grow, and our communities thrive. These quiet acts of courage and service often go unnoticed, but they are the foundation of what makes us who we are. They are what make our nation strong, resilient, and caring. And though the media may have you believe otherwise, Washington, D.C. is not an exception to this commonality in our country. Here, too, acts of courage and patriotism happen every day. These remarkable people span across political lines, demonstrating that bipartisanship is not only alive, but thriving. I'm fortunate to work alongside dedicated public servants on both sides of the aisle, all united by a shared goal of improving the lives of the citizens we represent and advancing the well-being of our great nation. You know, growing up, you never know how things are going to impact you and how some act of courage, big or small, will shape you. This speech that I give every once in a while is a direct result of such an act. When I was a kid growing up in Perryton, Texas, in the Panhandle, 7 miles from the Oklahoma border, that other country, on Sunday we would all go to church, and without fail, our pastor would start off every Sunday service with what he called joys and concerns. And during this, we would highlight some of the remarkable things that members of the church are doing and some of their accomplishments. He would also take this time to bring up the prayer requests that the members of our congregation needed. Since I've been in Congress, I've been given my own version of joys and concerns, and looking back now, I'm sure he never knew that one day his simple choice to recognize people in our congregation would bring the tradition, I would bring that tradition to the halls of the nation's capital. So I want to begin my joys by congratulating some outstanding individuals for their achievements. Molly McAllister of the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office for receiving the Hero Award for life-saving efforts as a 911 operator. Her quick thinking and composure in a high-pressure situation allowed her to gather critical information and guide emergency responders effectively and ultimately saving a woman's life. Julio Ambris of Midlothian High School for his heroic life-saving CPR actions. Julio demonstrated remarkable courage and presence of mind, applying his training to save a life during a critical emergency. Officer Clint Valley, who I know very well, since my daughter goes to this school, of Midlothian Heritage High School, for performing life-saving measures on a choking victim. Officer Valley's swift response and professionalism averted a tragedy and highlighted the value of quick action and outstanding training. Captains Jared Usry, Lance Wilkinson, and firefighters Jorge Guerrero and Justin Slovak of Red Oak Fire Rescue for their unit citation and Medal of Valor awards during the Smokehouse Creek wildfire, not in our district. Their heroic actions under extreme conditions protected lives and property, showcasing their dedication and bravery. Lindsay Batchelor, principal of Natchez High School, and Corey Hines, the superintendent of Natchez ISD, for achieving National Blue Ribbon School status for Natchez High School. Their leadership and dedication to fostering an exceptional learning environment have elevated the district to national recognition. Annalie Sandoval and Emiliano Tavera of Jacksonville High School for their service project, repainting iconic tomato statues in Jacksonville. Their initiative and hard work have preserved a beloved community symbol and inspired civic pride. Officer Donald Wynn, Officer Jennifer Thurman, and Officer Bourget for receiving Mothers Against Drunk Driving Awards for their dedication to keeping our roads safe. Their efforts have made a measurable impact in reducing impaired driving and protecting lives. Nikki Chaffin for her exceptional work as a recipient of the Heroes for Children Award. Nikki's dedication to supporting students and teachers in Elkhart ISD has enriched the community and fostered a nurturing educational environment. Vicki and Stephen Braley for their 100 years of service through Braley's Ace Hardware in Palestine. Their family business is a cornerstone of the community, providing essential services and a legacy of excellence. Robbie Griffin and Cason's Flowers for 100 years of dedicated service in Corsicana. Their long-standing commitment to quality and community engagement has made them a cherished institution. Suzanne King and the Alvarado Lions Club for their 85 years of service to the community. Their efforts in addressing local needs and empowering residents exemplify the spirit of service. Steve Black of Fairfield High School for his induction into the Agricultural Teachers Association of Texas 2024 Hall of Fame. Steve's passion for agricultural education has inspired countless students and shaped the future of Texas agriculture. Battalion Chief Gary Myers and Scott Smith on their retirements from Waxahachie Fire Rescue and Midlothian Fire Department, respectively, after decades of service to those communities. Their leadership and dedication have left an enduring impact on their departments and communities and years of life saving. Tommy Eberhardt of the Ellis County Sheriff's Office and Morris Stewart of the Navarra County Sheriff's Office for their retirements after long and impactful law enforcement careers. Their unwavering commitment to public safety has made their communities safer and stronger. Jennifer Johnson and her organization, Brave Like Ellie, for their incredible work supporting families battling pediatric cancer. Jennifer's compassion and dedication provide hope and support during life's most challenging moments. Flo Torres of Mansfield ISD for her leadership in Toys for Tots campaign, recognized as Region 5 Campaign of the Year. Her efforts have brought joy and relief to countless children and families during the holiday season. James Smith and David Abright for their contributions to mentorship through the Mentors Care program. Their guidance and encouragement have transformed lives and opened doors to brighter futures. Dr. Darrell Brown, Superintendent of Hillsborough ISD, and Patrick Harville, Principal of Hillsborough Junior High School, for their leadership in earning Hillsborough Junior High School recognition as a 2024 National Blue Ribbon School. Their vision and commitment to academic excellence have created opportunities for students to thrive. Richard Clark, a Vietnam veteran, welcome home, celebrates his 85th birthday this January. His service and sacrifices exemplify the courage and honor of our veterans. Ray Knowles, a Navy veteran of Korea and Vietnam, turns 91 this month. His legacy of service continues to inspire those around him. James Purdy, a Vietnam Air Force veteran, making his 82nd birthday this January. His contributions to our nation's defense will never be forgotten. John Murphy, an Air Force veteran of Vietnam and the Cold War, celebrating his 85th birthday this month. His dedication to our country is a testament to his enduring spirit and love of country. Jerry Davis, an Air Force Vietnam vet who turns 86 years old this month. His service and resilience continue to inspire. And Joe Waller, an Army veteran of the Cold War, who celebrates his 95th birthday this month. Happy birthday, Joe. His remarkable life of service reminds us of the strength and commitment of our veterans. I also wish to congratulate the following students on their Academy nominations for the class of 2029. It's extremely important to me. This is a job that I don't get to ask anybody's permission. We get to select the best and brightest our nation and our communities have to offer. And as a graduate of the Naval Academy, this is a role I take very, very seriously. And merit is what counts. Nominated to the United States Naval Academy, Paul Geary of Bishop Dunn High School, Tristan Russell of Mansfield Legacy High School, Maximus Stalker of Abbott High School, Sebastian Parker Villegas of Mansfield High School, and Bradford Webster of Randolph-Macon Academy of Ennis. Nominated to the Air Force Academy, Tanner Connell of Fort Worth Christian School, Cooper Davis of Midlothian Heritage High School, Isaac Freeman of Midlothian Heritage, Caitlin Maxson of Mansfield Lake Ridge High School, Nathan Sisson of Acellus Academy of Jacksonville, and Elijah Thayer of Maypearl High School. Nominated to the United States Military Academy at West Point, Ryder Havard of Arlington Martin High School, Madeline Hickey of Burleson Centennial High School, Noah Sparks of Alvarado High School, and Dylan Sturgill of Ennis High School. Go Navy, beat Army. I have the hardest working staff on the Hill, and over the last several years, they've been instrumental in helping me represent the 6th Congressional District of Texas. Today, many of my staff reached new milestones in their professional careers, and I want to share it with the folks back home. Madison Newsom of Mansfield has been promoted to Director of Operations. Grace Dunlap has been promoted to General Counsel. Owen Dankworth has been promoted to Legislative Director. Don Barber has been promoted to Executive Director of the Four Country Caucus. And while this is both sad and exciting for me, Georgette, she goes by George, Meng, will be leaving this office this fall and will attend law school at University of Maryland, Baltimore. Congratulations, George. You've done a wonderful job for us. We will miss you, but we'll see you again. As every member knows, this job is impossible without great staff. So I sincerely thank you all for the work and dedication you've shown me, our district, and this country. You know, just like back in church in Perryton, after the joys would come the concerns, and there was never a shortage because, as we all know, he says in Matthew, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, I am there among them." So for a moment, I'd like to ask all those in this chamber and who watch this online to keep these and all Americans in your prayers. Amy from Arlington is asking for strength and healing as her father undergoes treatment for cancer. David from Mansfield is filled with hope as his wife recovers from a recent surgery. May her journey to wellness continue smoothly. Jessica from Corsicana requests comfort and resilience for her son, who faces a challenging road to recovery after an accident. Robert from Waxahachie seeks peace and patience as his mother bravely battles Alzheimer's disease. Emily from Red Oak asks for encouragement and support for her daughter, who is navigating significant mental health challenges. Michael from Midlothian remains hopeful as his newborn son fights for strength in the NICU. Lisa from Hillsborough is thankful for every step forward as her husband recovers from a heart attack. May his progress continue steadily. John from Alvarado hopes for healing and guidance for his sister, recently diagnosed with a chronic illness. Sophia from Palestine prays for her family as they grieve the loss of a cherished loved one, seeking comfort and unity during this difficult time. Andrew from Grandview asks for successful outcomes and a smooth recovery as his brother prepares for a critical surgery. I'd also like to take a moment to honor Bobby Eugene Osborne, whose obituary reminds us of his contributions and the legacy he leaves behind. Bobby Eugene Osborne passed away peacefully at his home, surrounded by close friends that he called family, on the evening of Friday, November 15th, 2024 in Waxahachie, Texas. Bob was born on February 25th, 1925 in Elmo, Texas, to Mikey and Bessie Mae Osborne. The family moved to Dallas and later to Waco in 1934, where his father took a job building the VA hospital. Bob attended Waco High School until being drafted shortly after his birthday in 1943. He joined the war effort before completing his senior year. He proudly chose the Navy, taking the oath of office on March 12, 1943. Bob served his country aboard the USS Chester, CA-27, a heavy cruiser of the 5th Battlecruiser Division, as a hot shell man for one of the 5-inch guns. He fought in the battles of Tarawa, Saipan, and Iwo Jima, among others. Bob spent a total of 20 months in active sea duty. And after the war, Bob signed on for extra duty to sail the USS Chester from her California home to a reserve position in Philadelphia, navigating the Panama Canal in the process. 3 months after returning home from the military, Bob gave Ida, Lou, Dale, Vinson a ride on his motorcycle outside of a local bowling alley. Man of my own heart. The two were married a few months later on December 20th, 1947. They shared 62 years of marriage before Dale's passing in 2009. Their beautiful union created 2 magnificent children, David Lance Osborne and Darlene Dale Osborne. He had a long career working with Otis Elevator as a mechanic in Waco, San Antonio, and Lubbock before retiring in 1983. While in San Antonio, he helped build the Hemisphere Tower, where he was the main elevator mechanic. He lived in Alaska for a couple of years, where he worked on the pipeline. He and Dale moved to Waxahachie in 1984, where he opened Bob's Machine Shop and Welding. Now, Bob had no shortage of adventures in his 100 years of life. He pulled his travel trailer across the frozen highways in Alaska in temperatures of -78. He raced and did acrobatic tricks on his motorcycle in his younger days, drove dirt bikes in the mountains of Colorado, and continued to ride up into his late 90s. He even served as a search and rescue diver in waters around San Antonio. Adventurous a spirit as he may have been, he was a loyal and genuine man. That was evidenced through his 62-year marriage with Dale and his commitment to his shipmates through USS Chester reunions. You could always find him at the local cafes or biker hangouts around town, where everyone knew his name. Bob was preceded in death by his parents, wife Lou Dale, son Lance, daughter Darlene, brothers Bill, Don, and Tex, and sisters Betty Sue and Rose. He's survived by his partner in crime and loyal friend, Dan Seapack, granddaughter and caregiver, Jenny Fuller, and faithful friends, Jason Roy and Chase Colwell. Also by his grandson, Kelly Schubach, great-granddaughter, Amanda Schubach, great-grandsons, Cody and Corey Schubach, all of San Antonio, and his two great-great-grandsons, Finn and Nick Schubach. He's also survived by many too numerous to list, close friends and family. May Bobby's memory be a blessing. I'd also like to extend our prayers and support to the families impacted by the devastating fires in California. These fires have upended lives, destroyed homes, and tested the resilience of countless communities. Let us lift up those who are mourning, those who are rebuilding, and the brave first responders working tirelessly to protect lives and property. May they find strength, comfort, and hope in the face of adversity. And lastly, with great sadness, I want to take a minute to honor the life of Patty Williams. Patty was a remarkable woman, not just for her many accomplishments, but for the heart and soul she put into everything she did. From running a successful business to giving back to her community, Patty's hard work and kindness made a real difference to those back home and those in this chamber. As we pray for Congressman Roger Williams, her husband, their children Jacqueline and Sabrina, and the whole family, I ask the good Lord to wrap them in his loving arms and give them peace in this difficult time. Patty's legacy of love, faith, and service will live on in all of us. Each of these individuals and organizations exemplifies the best of our communities: service, leadership, and dedication. Their achievements are milestones that deserve to be celebrated. As I bring this to a close, I'd like for us to remember that our country's greatness lies in the strength of her people. Together, through unity, perseverance, and faith, we can continue to overcome challenges and build a brighter future. As we embark on a new Congress and a new presidency, may we all strive to honor and support one another in the spirit of community, service, and unity that our founders fought so hard to preserve. And remember, keep your faith in God, your hope in man, and it's going to come out okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. Does the gentleman have a motion?
Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do now adjourn.
The question is on the motion to adjourn. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. Accordingly, the House stands adjourned until 10 a.m. tomorrow for morning hour debate. Thank you.